I've connected the next tile that the story quest calls for and placed the objects on it. Here we have a large boulder, and here we have a hole in the ground that was formed by all of the earth movement. And just like I said before, as soon as one of our heroes steps foot onto this tile, then we'll populate this tile. That's why it's empty right now. So our goal here is to get this boulder into the hole, which is one of the parameters of our story quest here in Act 1, is to help those in need along the way. And in order to move this boulder into the hole, we have to be adjacent to it and do a non-combat action and get a number of 8 or greater twice. After we accomplish everything, we will move out to the north here. There are multiple areas to note on this tile. It's a much larger tile. You'll see a lot of the red lined areas all over the tile. Those areas block line of sight and you cannot move into them. And I don't know if it's going to show up on camera, but there's like a hazy purple area. That's this whole middle area here. You can kind of see it defined. It's hard for me to even see standing all the way up. But that hazy purple area is where items are going to be placed when we populate the tile, whether it's lairs or minions or captains or whatever it's called for according to the tile legend down here. We're at the beginning of our hero cycle here, and since we're on an empty tile, we can go ahead and move on to the new one, and it will cost us our base MP. So once we place one of our heroes on here from this tile, they're not going to have any base movement points left. They could use additional points with their cards to get more movement points if we wanted to. First, I have to decide who I want to step on there first. I think what I'll do is I'll have the soldier, since she's the furthest away. She'll use her base movement points to move onto the next tile. And now we'll go ahead and take a look at the tile legend and populate it. The first symbol we see on there is the quest symbol. We don't have to draw a quest because we're already in a story quest. Next, you're going to see the lair symbol, and there's a small little number 2 in that circle, which means this tile can have up to 2 lairs placed on it. So it's up to us if we want to put 1 or 2 on there. We have to put a minimum of 1. If it was a lair symbol with a question mark, then it would just be up to us whether we did it or not. But since it has a 2, that's telling us the maximum, and the minimum is 1. Here's the layer. I'm going to place 1 that I've chose to place on the tile. Here's the model for it. And these are the rodents that are going to be coming out of here. You can see their picture on their little sign above it. When placing the layer, it has to go at least one of the squares in this purple hazy area the layer has to be on at least one of those squares. It can be anywhere in there. You could put it on all 4 squares that this layer would cover onto that area, but you don't have to. And also when you're placing it, you can ignore these red lines. Like the layer can go on top of that there. You just have to make sure that the heroes are able to attack it. So that's actually where I'm going to place it, because there's one of those purple highlighted areas in that square right there. So we will put the layer right there, just like that. This red line applies to the layer anyway. The heroes cannot see through a layer. It blocks their line of sight, and they can also not move onto it. So that's a good spot for it to go in. I don't have one of the Myth 2.0 cards printed for the rodents, so I have the old cards here. That's what I have on the screen. When that layer is placed down, we need to have an initial spawn, and with the rodents or the minions that are called tailless, in a 3-player game it's going to spawn 8 of them. There are 2 models that we're going to see. These rodents or tailless here with the spears, these are the melee attackers. And then these guys here, these are the ranged ones with the slingshots. So they're easy to tell apart on the battlefield, kind of like the Shamblers were. The ranged ones had the bow held up over their heads, so they were easy to see. When spawning from this lair, whether it's now the initial spawn or one of the later ones, hopefully there's not too many later ones, they have to come out adjacent to the lair. So any of these spaces that are next to the lair, they're going to come out at. Now you're going to spawn the melee attackers first. And what I'm going to do, since I'm spawning 8, I'm just going to do 4 and 4. So the 4 melee attackers are going to come out first. And they're going to come out as close to the target as possible, but still adjacent to the lair. So we'll get all 4 of them out here. And now I'll go ahead and spawn the ranged attackers. They're all spawned. And keep in mind that our melee attackers have a range of 2 because those spears give them a little extra reach. And our ranged tailless here, they have a range of 3. Since I'm only putting 1 layer in, the next symbol is our hunting pack. And it has a question mark, so we don't have to put a hunting pack on here. But I think things went a little too smooth with our undead shamblers. So I'm going to go ahead and throw a hunting pack of 8 grubbers on the board to deal with also. Let's take a look at the models for the grubbers. All of the grubbers are melee fighters. They don't have any ranged attackers. You'll see that they have 3 different models. And I wish I could paint good and had the time to paint all these beforehand. And here's our third guy with his spiked club. When spawning a hunting pack, you also have to place the first one of the hunting pack somewhere within that purple area. And then all these just have to go adjacent. So we'll place him right here. A little bit closer, make it a little more difficult. Now the remaining members of that hunting pack, 7 more, must be placed adjacent to the first. Now our hunting pack of 8 grubbers is on the board, ready to make things difficult for us. The only thing I'm concerned with is the tailless have a courage value of 9 and the grubbers have a courage value of 7. So there's a possibility that they're going to have a difficult time attacking the characters. But they do have a couple of special abilities. The tailless, they have the swarm ability, which means their target number goes down by 2 when attacking hero with 4 or more. So if there's 4 or more tailless attacking a particular hero, the target number they need to hit me will go down by 2. The grubbers, they have ability that says strength in numbers. When there are 4 or more grubbers on a realm tile, each grubber reduces their courage value by 2. So there are 4 or more on the tile right now, so that courage value of 7 goes down to a 5. So I think that's a little bit better, a little more even matched with our group of characters here. And finally, we'll see the last symbol is the treasure symbol with a 6. So this particular realm tile has 6 potential treasures on the darkness board. And with 8 of them and 8 of them, we got 16 out there. So that's 5 groups of 3. And maybe if something comes out of that lair, any spawns that occur, we might have a chance at really picking up several treasures for this realm tile. But we also have to take care of that boulder before we leave. Also, a quick reminder, don't forget that the apprentice has her sphere of deflection ongoing, still in play, her research ongoing, and the hero's edge is still going. And at this time, the soldier has the hero's edge token. I don't have any cards for the soldier to use since she used her movement points to get to the new tile. I mean, I could have her sprint. That's just going to give her 3 more movement points and not really put her in position for a whole lot because it's an action card and her only other action card is riding the edge, so she couldn't do 2 actions at once. Maybe we'll go with the apprentice and I could have her cast her Blood of Gaia spell. So we'll use her base movement points to bring her to the tile, and Blood of Gaia has a range of 3. That grubber is 3 away, so Blood of Gaia is able to be used. She used her base movement that should qualify as the regular movement or the normal movement as far as Blood of Gaia. So she's going to lose one of her 10-sided dice from her dice pool for this attack. Also, this is an action, and because she has so many ongoings that are going on right now, it doesn't really hurt her to do her action this early. She only has 2 open action spots on her card, but this is going to add 2 AP to the darkness meter, so I'll move that up to 2 because it was at 0. I said that the apprentice has 2 action spots open. That's because she does have 3 ongoing spells going right now, but the Sphere of Deflection is underneath the Demon's Bane, so that allowed her not to put all 3 of those under her player board, which left her with those 2 spots open. She's casting Blood of Gaia, attacking here, and then it'll get these 2 behind her also. If there was one here, it would have got that grubber also, but first we need to build the dice pool. She starts off with her base 1 of each. Blood of Gaia is an attack that uses a focus, so the Demon's Bane will come into play, giving her 2 additional 10-sided dice and 4 additional fate dice, and her Ring of Neria gives her an additional fate die. Now she does lose the 1 because she had the base movement used up for Blood of Gaia, so she's only going to have 2 10-sided dice. The research is still in action, so if things go really bad here, she can re-roll 1 of the D10. This attack is going towards the grubbers. The target number to hit is going to be a 5, and the grubbers have 1 health apiece. And Blood of Gaia does 1 damage to each target. So we need to get at least a 5. And we got a 9. Nice. No problem there. She also made her fate recipe with her Demon's Bane, so she could have returned any ongoing cards to my action spaces, but we didn't clear any at this time for this spell, so we made it, but we didn't need it. The Blood of Gaia fire shoots out of her fingertips, nails that first grubber, and 2 of them behind him. That means 3 were taken out in 1 attack. So one of the treasure from the darkness board will get placed. I will have the Acolyte use his base movement points up to appear on the next tile there. And I want him a little bit closer to the tailless because he has his Consuming Fire card in his hand. Can't use it right now. Might want to hold on to that one because that's the one that does damage over time. And all lairs have 5 health or 5 vitality that you have to do that much damage to them to destroy the lair. And they have a base armor of 3. Now that he is on our tile, I'm going to go ahead and have the Acolyte play Armor of Faith. That way each enemy within range, so any enemies that are on this tile, they have their target number increased by the number equal to the Acolyte's faith. And he has 1 base faith and 1 on this card, so that means all the enemy's target numbers while this is in play for this hero cycle will be a 2. Also, I didn't mention it, but when the apprentice took out those 3 grubbers, I raised her threat by 3, and now it is at 3. She's the only one that has any threat value right now, and hers is at 3. I don't think I have anything else I want to do, or really have a lot that I can do with the cards that I have in my hand. So I'm going to move into my hero deck phase and reduce everybody's threat by the number of blank spaces. And I was a little premature because now that I'm going into the hero deck phase, I should not have played Armor of Faith. It's going to go into my discard pile. I should have held on to that for a little bit later on. Maybe, well, no, because I was going to hold on to Consuming Fire anyway. So the only one that's going to lower threat, because she's the only one with threat, is the apprentice. She only has 1 open action space, so we'll discard Blood of Gaia off of there now. So she has her 2 spaces open now, and the other characters have all of their spaces open. For each of the characters, I've decided to keep 1 card. For the apprentice, I'm keeping her Rift Walk interrupt so she can get out of there in case she gets swarmed. For the Acolyte, I changed my mind. I'm going to keep Last Rites. I think that's going to be a little more useful than the Consuming Fire would have been right away, because I can't fire over top of these guys to hit the lair, but I can clear a good number of them out by using Last Rites. And for the soldier, I have chosen to keep Disengage. That way she can dive into some of these enemies, and then when they attack back, she can get out of there. Now I'll draw back up. We have 4-hour apprentice, and she has Aura of the Elements. Ignore 1 damage per hero cycle. It's an ongoing. Glacier's Grip. This one can be quite useful. When you cast it, and it's an ongoing also, place the Glacier's Grip token in range, which has a range of 4. To affect a 3x3 area. Affected squares require 2 movement points to move into. So in essence, it casts like an ice storm or snow really deep that makes it really hard to move through there. Each hero targeting an affected target gains -2 target number, which slows them down and makes it harder for them to avoid attacks. For example, with a range of 4, I could target right here, and it would affect this 3x3 area. So any of these tailless moving would have to move through there or come all the way around. But whichever works better for them, they'll do, since they're an intelligent group. They're not an instinct group. But it would really slow them down. And for the ones that decided to walk through there, it would make them easier to take out. She also got another Blood of Gaia and another Mountain Crumbles, which she had in her hand previously. And we have Attend the Weak. Restore vitality equal to twice your faith to 1 target within range, and you gain 3 threat. Righteous Fury. Faith. The number of heroes equal to your faith within range gains +1 damage to attack actions. And that affects a range of 4. And then Guardian Angel, that's anywhere on the tile. This is a interrupt. Each successful attack targeting 1 target within range must be re-rolled once. You gain 2 threat. And then Soothe Wounds. Restore 2 vitality to 1 target within range. You gain 2 threat. Impenetrable. If you have a shield equipped, each attack targeting you gains +1 target number. This is increased by +1 target number for each rage card. That's an interrupt. Devastate. This is a massive melee attack. 3 damage. Range is the weapon. So maybe we could have our soldier take care of that lair. The easy way. You may search your draw pile for a card of your choice and add it to your hand. In addition, you gain +2 D10 to non-combat actions and courage tests. Well, that might be useful for the boulder, since we need target number 8 twice. And then Hustle. It's a good time to have that one. Gain 2 additional movement points, and it doesn't count as an action. So maybe that means we clear some of these tailless out, then we can have our soldier rush in there and land a devastating blow and put some hurt on that lair. Now we move into our refresh phase, and this time we have 2 active groups out there. We have the tribal group and the rodent group. So the darkness meter is going to go up 2 since we have 2 active groups. Well, actually, are the rodents active? They have a threat range of 5, which means they have to be within 5 to be active. But you also add the threat of the player. So the apprentice is the only one with threat. She has a 2. And the threat range on the rodents, as you can see on their card, that circle with the 5 in it there, under the priorities, is their threat range. So we add that 5 to the 2 of the character. So if there's a rodent within 7 of her, they're active. And I believe they are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, easily within range. So both groups are active. The darkness meter will go up 2. It previously went up 2 because of the Blood of Gaia, so it's going to go up 2 more, and we're already at 4. We're back into our hero cycle. I'm going to have the Acolyte cast Righteous Fury. That's going to raise our darkness by 1 to a 5 now. And Righteous Fury adds a faith to our pool there. The Acolyte has that 1 base faith, and I forgot that the Solace also gives a faith when I was talking during the previous card that I played. So with those 2 things, plus this Righteous Fury, he has a faith of 3. So a number of heroes equal to your faith, which is 3, within range gains +1 damage to attack actions. So all 3 of them, because that's a range of 4, So all 3 characters are within 4 of our acolytes, so they all get +1 damage to their attack actions. I'm going to have him do 2 movement, which is all he can move without using any additional cards, because he doesn't have any items that grant additional movement beyond his base. And then I'm going to have him go ahead and do Last Rites. Doing Last Rites is going to raise the darkness meter 2. So after he's done playing this card, the darkness will activate. Again, just so I don't forget, we're going to raise it 2, 1, and then it's going to come all the way back around, and it's going to go back on 1 already. Anytime you go over the 6, you apply it again over here. So instead of just going over 6 and it being 0, we went over by 1, so it ends up on the 1. Let's build our dice pool and see if we can pull this off. We get our base of 1 and 1. This is an attack that can use a relic, so we can use our dark crystal, and that's going to give us 2 additional D10 and 1 additional fate die. And I believe that is it. He doesn't have a whole lot in the way of modifiers that are going to help him out here. So this isn't going to be super easy. The tailless have a target number of 4 that I need, and the lair has a target number of 3. Now I need to roll 2 of these 10-sided dice that are going to beat those numbers. For example, if I rolled a 1, and an 8, that 8 can be applied to either the tailless or the lair. It can't be applied to both, so that means I would miss one of them. Now if I roll 2 numbers 3 or higher, then one of them can apply to the tailless and the other can apply to the lair, and then everything would get hit. So I hope that clarifies the way that the attack works. You need 1 die to beat each group or each target number that you're going up against. And we did great. No problem at all. A 6, an 8, and a 9. That means all of the attacks will hit. The holy fire comes flying out of the sky, nailing this first tailless right there, and then consuming all of them around. The lair isn't destroyed, but it does take 2 damage. And it takes 2 damage because Righteous Fury adds +1 damage to the attack action. Now they have you keep track of damage to lairs and captains and things like that on the darkness board, but that can get kind of confusing, at least for me. So I just use these mini 6-sided dice, and I just put it next to the item that's being tracked. That way I can see if there's 2 damage to that lair. And finally it swings all the way around and takes out that tailless 2. That one was the 3rd one that was taken out, which means another of our treasures will be placed on the board. And that's going to raise the Acolyte's threat quite a bit, because he did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 damage. Even though he was doing 2 damage to each tailless, they only had a health of 1, so they only count as 1. But he is going to get his threat raised from 0 all the way up to 5. And like I just said, right here is where they would have you keep track of damage. Like a lair has 5 health, and sometimes you have captains and things on the board, and I get confused. I'm just simple-minded, so I just use dice or markers like that on the board. It really helps me visualize and know what's going on. But the darkness has activated, so it interrupts our hero cycle. And roll 1 fate die. For each hero adjacent to another, a captain appears next to a hero that matches that attribute. I haven't had that come up in a while. How do I do that? We currently have 2 heroes. They're adjacent to each other, so that means I'm going to roll 1 fate die for each hero adjacent to another, so I'm going to roll 2 fate die. And if we look on the hero's tokens, the apprentice, hers has the arcane symbol, which is the die on the left, and the acolyte has the faith symbol, which is the die on the right. And what that means on that event is when I roll these, if an arcane symbol or a faith symbol comes up, then one of the rodents, captains, will appear. And if I'm unlucky enough to roll both symbols, then we'll have a couple captains appear. So let's hope for no faith and no arcane. Oh, we got 2 darkness symbols. We're in the clear. I only spoke partially correct. Everything was correct. I rolled the 2 dice because there was 2 players adjacent to each other, but I also could have had a captain appear if a rage symbol came up, because it just says a captain appears next to a hero that matches that attribute. So it doesn't have to be the 2 that are next to each other, just any of the attributes that match. So I got lucky. 2 darkness symbols, nothing to worry about. The threat penalty we don't have to worry about because we don't have anybody at threat level 10, but it says all 12 by 12 realm tiles must have 2 layers for the rest of the act, which means we would have had to have added a second layer. And then we activate. There are no bosses, mini bosses, or captains, so the minions will now activate. And then we're going to have a heavy spawn this time because we do have a lair. Now the minions will activate. Both of these groups are intellect type minions or intellect type groups. They kind of move at the same time. Doesn't really matter. The way that the intellect monsters move is they use all of the movement points to get in range to hit their targets, and they leave room for the others in their group to get in there and attack also. I'll go ahead and do the grubbers first. I'll choose them because they're a little more courageous, since their courage is a base of 7, but it's actually a 5 since there's still 4 or more of them on this tile. And their priority is threat. Right now the highest threat is the acolyte, which is over here. So that's who these grubbers are going to want to go after. But they can only move 3. So I don't know, 1, 2, 3. One of them can reach him, and he'll come over there and go after him. But the others are too far away, and since they're too far away to move into position to attack in the same round, they're going to go after a different target. And the next thing they have is the apprentice, who has a threat of 2. The soldier doesn't have any threat yet, so they're going to go after the apprentice because she is the next closest priority with the highest threat that they can reach. So we'll move this guy first. He's going to move 1, 2, 3 into position so he can attack the acolyte. This guy's going to move 1, 2, and he's not going to stop there. He has 1 movement point left because he wants to leave room for his buddies. So he's going to move 3 and come around to the flank of the apprentice. I don't know, 1, 2, 3. I don't think any of the remaining ones can make it to her. So they'll move as close as possible. For the ones that cannot move into position to attack in the same round, they're going to move as close as possible to their highest priority. And their highest priority is threat. So they're going to move towards the acolyte. But that's going to kind of put them in between anyway. So we'll go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Next I'll move our tailless. We only have 1 melee attacker, and they can move pretty quick. They can move 4. So their priority though is to go after the least threat first. And the least threat is the soldier. And right now he cannot reach the soldier. He can only move 4, so he would only be 1 away there. I made a mistake. I forgot that they have a range of 2. So moving here with 4 means he can go after the target with the least threat available, because that range of 2, because they have those spears. And now we have our 4 ranged that have a range of 3, and they're going to go after their least threat. And they have to come within 3. So we got 1, 2, so right there is within range. 1, 2, 3. So these 2 spots are within range. So if I were the monsters, and thematically speaking, I don't think they're going to move into these 2 spots and fire at a soldier with the acolyte right there ready to smash them. So I think they'll default also to proximity. I don't think they would put themselves in danger like that, considering their courage is so bad anyway. So the acolyte, they only have to get within 3. So this one could move here. This would block line of sight through this area here. So that one would be pretty close. Move him there. This guy, 1, 2, 3. And he still is within 3. Actually, yeah. And then 1, 2, 3. I think that would be okay. That's pretty close. Kind of shaving that corner. Yeah, I think he would make it around that corner. So all 4 of them are 3 away within range of the Acolyte. We'll get the single attacks out of the way first. First we have this grubber attacking our apprentice. And he needs to pass his courage test first because of the Harbinger ability. And since there's 4 more of them on there, he needs to at least get a 5. That grubber needs at least a 5 to attack the apprentice. He does not. He's just way too freaked out by all the spells that she was casting. He can't gather the courage to attack. We have this grubber here who wants to go after the Acolyte, and he will also need a 5. And he is not successful either, also too scared. Next we have our one tailless here, using his spear to try and hit the soldier. Their courage is really bad, which is a 9. So they need a 9 or a 10 to be able to attack. Got that spear shaking in his hands. He wants to see if he can gather the courage to attack. He cannot. And we have our firing squad of tailless right there, ready to fire, but they're also extremely scared, shaking. So all 4 of them are going to need to pass a courage test, and they're going to need a 9 or a 10. Let's see if any of these tailless have what it takes to actually get a shot off. Oh, I see a 10. That means one of them is successful at firing a shot off, but does it hit? We'll keep that 0, or that 10, I'm sorry. And the tailless have a target number of 7. Let's see, -4 target number when attacking a hero with 4 or more tailless. Well, there are 4 of them that are lined up shooting there, so that target number is going to drop by 2 down to 5. Oh, and he lands a hit. He didn't even need the bonus. I don't know which one it was, but one of them got a shot off and plunked the Acolyte in the head with that slingshot, doing a damage. That's going to take his health down from a 9 to an 8. Things are going to get a little more difficult now, because the last part of that darkness card was heavy spawn. And if we look on the tailless card at the bottom, a heavy spawn means out of that lair is going to come 3 more melee tailless, 3 more ranged, and 1 wrath. And the wrath is a captain. And we can take a look at his card here. He can also move 3. He's a little more courageous with a courage of 7, armor of 5, and he has 3 health. And we can see he has a multi-bolt repeater for his attack. He rolls 2 10-sided dice, and he does 2 attacks on 2 different targets with a target number of 5. And he has a range of 5, so he can shoot really far, and each hit is going to score a wound. He also has a special associated with his attack, Shadow Step. So with his attack, he's going to roll 2 fate dice. And if he rolls a darkness symbol, he gets +6 movement points. So he can get across the board really, really fast. And here is our Wrath. You can see he's got those crossbow bolts ready to go. He's a pretty big guy too. So we're going to have to deal with him too. And just like any other spawn, the melee attackers are going to spawn first. Those 3 spawn, and then followed by our ranged attackers. And you can see Wrath is pretty easy to spot out there on the battlefield. He is quite large, looming over top of everybody. I couldn't put him any closer because you have to put his base on 4 squares, and they have to be in legal spots. I couldn't put him partially on that boulder. But this hole doesn't have any red around it, so he's allowed to occupy that space also. Before the darkness phase completely ends, I'm going to play the interrupt from the apprentice. I'm going to play Rift Walk, which allows her to teleport. Choose 1 square up to 3 squares away, place your hero on that square, and that is not considered a move. She's right here, and I want to place her right here next to the soldier on the other side, and that's only 2 squares away. That is not going to cost us any AP on the darkness meter, and the reason I did that will become evident in just a moment.